Welcome to Let's Talk Midlife Crisis. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Tracy. And today we're talking about grands that co-parent. So grandparents that co-parent or have custody of their grandchildren.
Yeah, it's as we were talking about this before we were trying to pick a topic, I was thinking about how crazy it is that it's changed so much where grandparents are a lot more involved than they used to be.
Yeah.
As far as parenting and disciplining and being involved in their everyday life. Yeah. It's really changed a lot, even since I raised my children. I had kids pretty young.
Yep.
So I still had little brothers at home that were in sports. And so my mom was still raising children when I started having children. And so she was involved as much as she could be, but certainly not as much as she is now with my youngest brother's kids.
Yeah.
It's very, very different.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think that there's a lot of reasons for that. And some grandparents have sole custody, right, or raising their grandchildren, which, overall isn't an entirely new concept. I think that's always happened. But I think that the magnitude and the number of grandparents that are more involved and or are raising their grandchildren for numerous reasons, whether it's divorce, addiction.
The most common one, probably.
I know. Yeah. That's definitely fits in for here in our household because of a recent divorce or separation. I'm more involved now because I just want to provide that stability and kindness and a role model that sometimes people, when they are breaking up, don't provide, right, for their children.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think too, when parents are splitting, and especially when the kids are really young, there's so much confusion and back and forth, and it's so great that they have you to provide this space that, is, they know that it's going to be consistent in your home. There's not going to be arguing. There's not going to be, mom's sad today. It's, you're consistent. You're there. They know they're safe. They're loved.
Yeah.
And it just gives them that comfort.
I hope so. That's that's what I hope for. Right. But I know that there's a lot of different reasons too. I mean, that's just why, what's happening in our household, right? And why I thought it would be great to talk about this. But the funny thing is, I actually got the topic from a recently released movie, Freakier Friday, with Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis, where it's a sequel, I guess, to the original movie, right, where they switch bodies and stuff.
Right.
But the funny thing is I still haven't finished watching that movie. But at the very beginning, Jamie Lee Curtis is helping Lindsay Lohan, who's a single parent. Right. And so she made that comment, grands, helping co-parent or something along that line. Right. And I was like, well, that would be a great topic. Right. So there's that. But there's also addiction, which is, rampant in our country right now, or globally, I would think as well, not just, in the U.S., but financial hardship, mental health, deployment, which I don't really think about a lot in my circle, in my world, but also incarceration, right? Or, simply being overwhelmed. Parents just being overwhelmed altogether because of perhaps all of the above, right? But I think that the family dynamics and how it changes, and it pretty much takes 3 generations navigating the boundaries, expectations, and identity. And I think we used to always say it takes a village, and we were each other's village, right? And I couldn't have done it without you, always stepping in when I needed it at the drop of a hat.
Likewise.
Yeah, pick up of the phone.
Yeah. We've got a great group of single moms, and we've been lucky to have each other to help each other out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and not everybody has that.
My parents don't live here. So,
exactly.
And I know yours weren't terribly involved either, so it was really nice that we had each other.
Yeah. My parents weren't parenting type of people, which is hilarious. But it's, perhaps one of the reasons why I was a parent so young and moved out on my own, right? That was funny. That's funny just thinking about that. But yeah. I think that there's a reality for a lot of grandparents who co-parent and like me don't mind it at all. One of the main reasons why I changed jobs a few years ago after COVID, after working from home and, having that ability, and the kids, all the grandkids go to school right across the street, right in my neighborhood, right? They all go to the school, same school that their parents went to, but that way, I can pick them up after school. If anybody's sick, I'm the go-to person. And I did that on purpose. And it was very heartwarming. And I wanted to do that, right? I think a lot of the reason that I try to be so active is because my parents weren't, right? And I felt like I didn't have anyone besides you guys. And so I'm trying to, be support for my children, for whatever their needs are. And it's just kind of, you want your children to have better lives than you did or whatever, that old saying. But basically just, trying to be there for them because, my family really wasn't there for mine. And I'm not complaining. It's fine because I had you guys. It was, my selected family.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And it's, like I said, I think, we've seen an increase in, more involvement from grandparents. Like I said, my mom was still pretty young. She had me pretty young, and then I started having kids pretty young. So she was still raising kids, and she's a wonderful grandmother. But like I said, she's a lot more involved with my nieces now because, now my youngest has young children and
Right.
she's retired. And so she gets to, it's a different dynamic,
Right.
She's a lot more involved, just like you. I know the
And
other
they're
day,
local.
she had to go stay home with one of the girls because she had the flu and, her parents couldn't get time off. So
Yeah.
my mom went to take care of her.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot more involvement in that aspect. She's not as involved as you are with your grandkids. I wonder, I'm just curious, are there ever issues that you have as far as disciplining or how to handle a behavior, or do you butt heads with your son at all on how, deciding how to handle that, or how far you should go with, dealing with that?
Yeah. It's funny because we've
Or do you
actually...
just hand it over and say, you know what, that's your dad's problem?
And it's funny that you mentioned that because I try not to overstep with my son's children. He has 2, and then my oldest daughter has 2 as well. They're older, but mostly I actually spend time with all of them. But the older ones, everybody's getting ready to have a birthday. So they're getting ready to be 14 and 16, right? And then the little ones are now 6 and 8. So I think the little ones just need it more than the older ones, but the older ones just the same. But to your point, I try not to overstep, right, in the boundaries of Dad's discipline. But it's funny because we did all have a conversation, so myself, my son, and his 2 children, about who is the boss, right? And I think they were surprised to find out that my son said that I am his boss, right? Like, so it just established that hierarchy. Like, Dad is the boss, but I am the boss over Dad. So, but it was just funny to see their little minds working and clicking when they realized that, like, oh, gee, how does that work? But honestly, I try consciously not to overstep, right, the boundaries because I'm a softie, right? And he knows that clearly, my son, after raising him, and he knows how to get away with things, but he also wants to be a disciplinarian. And I respect that as well. So it's conscious line, right, that we walk to make sure that
I would imagine
I don't step over any boundaries, what have you. But then there's also times where he knows I'm around, so he doesn't say or do anything, right? Like, so he kind of stops parenting because he knows I will. So again, it's still, I don't know if there's a perfect recipe, right, for it.
Yeah.
But I think that love and just caring and trying and everything.
And being respectful of each other's boundaries and so I've been with my partner for 10 years now, and when we started dating, my kids were all teenagers, which is a very challenging time.
Yes.
And we would have, she would come to me and say, I'm really frustrated that, your son does this or did this or whatever it might be. And I made it a point to say, then you need to tell him that. Because yes, I'm his mom, but it's something that's bothering you, and I am totally fine with you addressing that and having that conversation with him, because I didn't want there to be this division. I wanted it to be clear that she and I were a team,
right?
And we support each other, and we're doing this together, and they need to respect her as much as they do me as a parent.
Yes.
And so it was really hard for her at first, because she doesn't have children of her own. Yep. She's never raised kids. And again, you don't want to overstep boundaries. You want to let, things be handled the way the parent wants them handled. But I just felt that it was important that she set that, precedence with them early in the relationship, because I wanted them to look at her as another parent, you know, and as my teammate,
100%.
So yeah, I think that is something that really people probably don't think about when it comes to the dynamic of grandparents being that involved. Like, obviously when you're in a relationship and your partner, you think about that, but when
or
it's
step-parents.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, step-parents, it's a great point that you brought up. Although, we're talking about the grandparents, but there's so many as well that have step-parents involved, right? Or blended families too. That's a whole nother show, I think, with the blended families. But I think it's very common now. The adult child is present but struggling. I think that oftentimes there's nothing that a grandparent can do but go ahead and step up. But it also brings in challenges, because I know, mentioned yesterday, just before the show, I was telling you how we went bike riding. I took the younger two for a bike ride, and we love doing it. I actually love doing it. Gets me out exercising. And my 8-year-old grandson had just said, because we checked the weather before we left to make sure, because we've had so much wild rain here, we checked the weather with Alexa, and it said it was going to be sunny, and it was 73 degrees out. And we were riding right across the street from our house is this big park. So we went riding through the park, and my grandson, who was in the front of the three of us riding bicycles, he's yelling back at us, "What a great day for a bike ride. It's sunny and 73. Oh. And we were just having the time of our lives. All the way up until my 6-year-old granddaughter crashed her bike. And I actually had to call Dad. Right? I mean, there was blood gushing out of her mouth, and and I panicked and called Dad, and I'm like, "You need to come quick, meet us at the bridge," and then everybody stepped up. My grandson stepped up. He had both bicycles. He's like, "No, I got this," and he did both bicycles. I was pushing my bicycle, and Ayla was in front just screaming and bleeding profusely. But by the time we got to the end of the sidewalk, I was out of breath. It's just amazing. When you get older, it's hard to keep up, right? As well. So there's a lot of challenges, physical challenges. There might be health concerns, or God help anybody who's chasing around a toddler, for goodness sakes. I'm just so happy that these guys are at a good age, right? Like, they're potty trained, and they can tell you if they're hungry or not feeling good. But toddlers, they wear you out. But these guys actually wore me out, and I think the stress and the anxiety of it and trying to rush to get there, I was just out of breath. I could feel it. It's just interesting. Yeah.
I mean, I imagine that it can be really exhausting, especially, I mean, you're picking kids up from school.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot, consistently every day with them. So you're having to, make that time in your day while working full time, which, you and I both did with our children.
We did. Yeah. But it's funny because there's so many things that I'm doing that I didn't do with my own children for clear reasons. And one of those was I am teaching my 16-year-old how to drive. But
Wow.
I didn't teach any of my children how to drive. It's like I can't do it. I'm not made for that. And I'm just trying to have patience and grace and let him do it, because now mom's working 2 jobs, right? So I'm trying to help out there. And as you mentioned, picking him up for school. So last week, one day, he's like, can I drive? Can I drive, Nana? I'm like, okay, because usually we'll just drive through residential where, you can't go fast, right? I'm just trying to teach them the important things about driving, defensive driving skills, right? And then in a residential, I'm like, what do you do when you see a ball about going into the road? It's like, and you don't see anybody around. What do you do? And he's like, you stop the car. I'm like, good answer. But anyways, he was like, can I drive faster? And I'm like, okay. And he wanted to get on the freeway. And I'm like, oh, heck no. And, but we ended up driving down a main thoroughfare. So you'll know it was 7th Street, and we started, at North Canyon, so Union, and just went north, right? And I thought, okay, well, this is good. But then all of a sudden we were driving. He was doing well, a little jerky, right? And then we hit a construction zone. And he was so close to those construction those, what do you call them? The street sign things, the cones, but they're metal. On my side, I am grabbing onto the door, and I'm like, scoot over. I'm like, he was gonna hit one, and I'm seeing dollar signs, and insurance premiums going up and everything, but he didn't. The good news is that he didn't. But I can't tell you how many times I grabbed the door, and I was like, and I told him, I didn't teach your mother how to drive, and I didn't teach your aunt and uncle how to drive. It's like, it's just so
I think you probably have more patience now.
I try, but it's still, I try, but it's a challenge, but, and number one, it's just, I would give millions. It's priceless to have that one-on-one time with him, that a 16-year-old boy that wants to spend time with his grandmother. And I don't care if it's just driving, but I'm happy to be able to do it. But it's just funny because, some things, I never did that with my own children, but maybe it is because I am older now. I don't know if it's more patience, because my stomach was doing flip-flops, and I couldn't, every now and then I could hear myself gasping and then grabbing the door because, he was just all over the road jerky.
Yeah.
But whew, I tell you.
Yeah, I think that's nice that you get that bonding time, because even though you might not realize it in the moment, that's what's happening when you're spending that kind of time with them.
Yeah, making memories and stuff. And I try with schoolwork, if they come home sick, or the 8-year-old was coming here for a little while after school, I was picking him up. I don't remember. Mom was doing something, Dad was doing something, but, and he set up a little office in my office at home, and he would do his schoolwork and stuff, and I signed him up for these classes online, these learning classes, because I thought, well, if you're going to be on a screen, on a computer, at least, do something that's educational, right? As well as fun. So, and he really enjoyed doing that, and we did that for a while. So I think it's hard for me to spend equal time with all of them, right? Because then they get jealous, because one of them, the 14-year-old, comes over every day before and after school, because the school's literally across the street from me, and mom now lives out of district, but I'm just trying. And then he never has homework. I'm like, do you have homework? He's like, no, I think we have an extra a class that we can do that in, right? Or something, but, because I am a grandma, and I'm a big old softie, right? And I don't want to have any guilt about anything, so.
Yeah, I think that's important as a grandma, to kind of be a softie, even though you are involved in their everyday lives and helping, their parents out. I don't know. I think that everyone likes that perception of their grandma. I mean, I'm just sure there's grandmas out there that are a little harsh. But I just envision them all being so sweet and soft.
Yeah. So, and actually, we have some that come over, like my 14-year-old grandson that has his best friend. He goes after school every day to his grandmother's house. So his grandmother and I often communicate because, Gabriel will go over to his house, Joel will come over here, or, there's some kind of a picking up and, coordinating of children or dropping off. So it's not unusual, right? And it's just funny how I'm, meeting other grandma friends and stuff like that. But, but I know that there's people that need resources, right? And unfortunately, we're going to have some linked in our show notes here. But, whether it's kinship programs or state support or nonprofits, for grand families, there's actually a lot of support out there for grandparents.
And I think for, parents too that don't have grandparents to help like that, like I said, I didn't have my parents around to help me, so I had to find things like the Boys and Girls Club and, after school programs. Like, thank goodness your kids don't have to worry about finding those programs and paying for them. Because they have you to help out, which is amazing. But, especially in today's economy, a lot of people just can't afford that. It's crazy. I mean, I know when I had my youngest two in daycare, my daycare bill, monthly bill, was as much as my mortgage.
Yeah, 100%. Me too.
The exact same price. It was absolutely insane. And I would assume it's the same or worse now.
It has to be.
They're in their 20s now. And so to have to try to figure out how to afford these programs is really challenging, especially in today's, economy. So, I think it's great that they have you to do that. And, but again, like you said, you need support, they need support. There's a lot of support out there. But I think you guys are heroes. I really do. I think it's amazing that, you're still as involved as you are in raising children, because it's, even when your kids are grown, you're not really done being a parent.
And I thought so, funny, naively, right? When my kids were little, I was like, oh, once they're grown and out of the house. But I actually worry about them more now. So, but burnout, I think, is a huge thing too, right? Whether, luckily, as involved as I am, I still have the parents, right? So, they're here pretty much every weekend, and then mom takes them during the week for most of the time. But I still find myself irritable sometimes, right? But sometimes I do get irritable, and I feel like my patience does wear thin, but it's just such a short period of time that it's easy to get over it. But there are, support groups, there's therapy, there's community centers, there's sliding scale daycare for those that are full-time. I'm not full-time, so I can't even compare it to somebody who has their grands on a full-time, permanent basis, that you might need additional support, right? And that their children are one of the above that we mentioned before, maybe mental health issues or incarcerated or, addiction issues to where they can't be around at all. I'm fortunate that, they're around, and it's just kind of everybody's sharing custody so that it's just always a loving, caring, warm environment. But I'm a lucky one, right? And it's kind of chosen, but there are resources out there. And again, we'll put those in our show notes for those of you who, might be looking for some resources.
Well, I think that they're lucky as well to have you, and that you're as involved as you are. Some people probably just can't do it mentally and emotionally,
Yeah. Or financially, for whatever reason.
I think it's great that you're supporting.
Yeah. Not everybody gets the luxury of working from home, right? Mm-hmm. And if I wasn't working from home, I couldn't be as involved as I am now. But, family doesn't always look like the picture on the Christmas card. Right?
That's so true.
Sometimes it looks even stronger. People have this weird feeling about their family. I think I realized a long time ago that, what did I used to say? We're the most functional, dysfunctional family I know, right? But I didn't see a problem with being dysfunctional, right? Like, I think I knew from early on that it didn't have to be picture perfect. And perhaps nobody was picture perfect. And I always told my children when they were little, like, be careful. You never know what's going on in somebody's lives at home behind closed doors, right? Everybody seems, to have that picture perfect family. But it's often not the case. I'm sure that there are still picture perfect families out there, and God bless those ones that have it. But I think for most of us, it's something that looks a little bit different, and I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. It just is different. So, yeah. God bless the grands.
Yeah, I mean, I think every family has its own challenges, and I think perception is a lot more skewed with social media these days, and you don't really realize what's going on. I've definitely thought, friends of mine were doing great, and then I talk to them just based off what I'm seeing on social media, and I talk to them, and it's like their life is in shambles,
Yeah. Or all of a sudden, getting a divorce or separation, and you thought that was the happy couple that you looked up to because they seemed so happy together. Idyllic.
Well, and just kids too. Kids, I think, are very cautious of what they're portraying for themselves on social media and not really who they are and what's happening. And then you find that, maybe they're having a really tough time with their mental health or, and you have no idea because of what they're choosing to share. And obviously you don't want to air your dirty laundry, but, to your point, you just never know what's going on with someone and with a family. And, I don't think that picture perfect is, my family has its own challenges. I think we're picture perfect, but, I'm biased.
Right. Exactly. Well, if you're a grandparent, co-parenting, we see you. You're doing sacred, life-altering work. And if you know one, support them. They may not ask, but they may need it. Right?
True. I think you're all heroes.
The midlife sleep hack everyone is talking about. Night sweats? Try Cozy Earth. 40% off with code LETS.
Well, that wraps it up for today. Thanks for joining us on Let's Talk Midlife Crisis. We hope you got some laughs, a little inspiration, and maybe a few new ideas.
If you loved today's episode, hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. And hey, share the love. Send this episode to a friend who could use a good laugh and some midlife wisdom.
Connect with us on social media at Let's Talk Midlife Crisis and let us know what's on your mind. We love hearing from you.